Hello again from Fired Up. I'm your host for the show, Bob Irwin. We're broadcasting from Rigel Studios here in Las Vegas, Nevada. This show is about guns, related politics, and self-defense issues. Fired Up is on our website, firedupwithbobirwin.com. A new show is posted every Thursday evening at roughly 5 p.m. Pacific time. These shows also appear on YouTube and numerous other media. The audio feed is rebroadcast for radio listeners Saturdays at noon on the Nevada Talk Network. You can check out KELY1230.com for a station in your area. I was just going to stop for a minute and say how nice it is to be here in Las Vegas with our wonderful weather. Currently outside it is 104 or 5 and with 45 mile an hour wind gusts. It's like living inside a blow dryer. This is not what we call Chamber of Commerce weather here in Las Vegas. But if you're freezing, this is a good place to come. Anyway, if you have questions or comments, you can send an email to bob@firedupmail.com or leave a message on my office recorder, which is 702-257-1060. If you leave contact information, I'll respond by email, text, or telephone. Questions directed to our guests will be forwarded to them, of course. If you don't leave contact information, then I can't call you back. So there you are. There are several hundred defensive uses of firearms every week in the United States, rarely covered by any mainstream media. So we always present a few for our listeners' education. Most are good shootings. Some are questionable. Sometimes they are just plain wrong, but all are educational for firearms owners. Individual incidents are generally adjudicated under local law, so the advice we give here may not apply if you live in a different jurisdiction where I would say that's a good shooting or you should have done this. May not apply in all places. Obviously, the laws vary from Texas to New York and everything in between. The incidents are as reported, except the names are omitted of the participants. Today's guest is retired Police Detective Sergeant Mike Bunker. Mike, a bit of your background, if you would, please.
Hi. I was a police officer for 40 years. I've worked in uniform patrol as a sergeant and a patrolman. I worked night shift detective, which handled just about everything that comes across the board, up to and including murder from start to finish. Murders, not so much. Narcotics and organized crime.
And kind of been there and done that. I've got two stories today that are coming from the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and that's our local, rather conservative newspaper. They're pretty good paper. I have rewritten them very slightly because they tend to write like newspaper guys write. They tend to write their articles with what the result was and then the details later. And for our viewers, I like to do it the other way around and write basically what happened and then what the result was. But if you are interested in Las Vegas and what's going on here, it's a great paper to subscribe to. I'd strongly recommend the Las Vegas Review-Journal. You can find them online. They publish a printed paper and they publish a full paper on the internet also, which you can subscribe to and get all the headlines and all the stories. And they have a search engine on there. You can look through old articles to see what happened last week or last year or 6 years ago. It's really an amazing site, and the paper, of course, is owned by the ownership of the Sands Hotel here in Las Vegas, which, as you know, is a rather conservative organization, and I just want to recommend them as I'm using their stuff here. Anyway, the Review-Journal, a reporter named Max Melcher, reported on 6/18/19, a couple days ago. We're broadcasting this on the 20th. Wayne Newton appeared in a Las Vegas courtroom to testify against a man accused of breaking into the entertainer's Southeast Valley home twice last year. The 22-year-old defendant faces 11 charges, including burglary, home invasion, grand larceny in connection with 2 June 2018 break-ins at the Newton home. The prosecutor here, from the DA's office, Jury Scarborough, said the first burglary was discovered on June 3rd after a housekeeper, June 3rd, 2018. So we're a year past that now. A housekeeper arrived at the home to let the Newtons' dogs outside because they were out of town. As she walked around the outside of the house, she noticed a shattered glass door leading into a guest bedroom. Newton said on the stand while he's testifying Tuesday that his 17-year-old daughter, Lauren, was so shaken by the burglary that she began sleeping in her parents' bedroom. Evidence from the second burglary show an air mattress was actually added in their master bedroom. The second break-in came on June 13th when the Newtons arrived home late at night to find two men inside their home. Both fled the scene before police arrived, but they dropped a crowbar and some of Newton's personal property as they jumped over a wall. Shortly before that June 13 burglary, a surveillance camera at another home in the neighborhood recorded footage of two men in the backyard. Prosecutor Scarborough said the men moved the camera to point away from the home's back door, but not before it caught this 22-year-old suspect's face. He was arrested in July of 2018 after police traced stolen watches, jewelry sold to a local jewelry store back to him. More of the Newtons' property was found at the suspect's house. Does this sound like a slam dunk case? Wayne Newton told the jury that two of the family's dogs, Rhodesian Ridgebacks, I had to leave this in, named Ginger and Diva, attacked the burglars on June 13th after one suspect threatened his wife with a crowbar. Both dogs were injured, one having its teeth knocked out. Newton then drew a handgun and fired a shot into the air as the men fled, but no one was injured. There are two sides to every story, of course. The suspect's defense attorney, Will Ewing, argued that detectives were pressured to solve the burglary case quickly because of Wayne Newton's fame and attention from local and national media. He said, I think we're going to show that the circumstances led his client to being used as a scapegoat. Police have yet to identify the second suspect in the June 13 burglary. The trial continues in the courtroom of District Judge Michael Villani, who is one of our great and conservative and tough judges here in Las Vegas. I know him personally, great guy. And really funny when he's not on the bench. Anyway, here we have an armed celebrity resident thwarting a criminal. If you think what would have happened to the Newtons had they not been an armed household, the shot in the air part can be problematic. I have defended a few cases wherein such a loud warning has led to charges for the person firing the gun. So, Mike, the question and the why I wanted you here for this, do we treat famous people differently when they're crime victims, allowing a rush to judgment?
I don't think there was a rush to judgment. Was the case addressed aggressively? Yeah. Should it have been? Certainly. Wait a minute. You've got two guys with a crowbar that beat up dogs. When people are there, that's one of the profile crimes that I would want to investigate. They were up to no good, and they had, for you, Will Ewing, to say he's a scapegoat is grasping at straws that are quickly being shoved into a fan to be chopped up.
We have had cases like that. I'm going to go back into history. I said I've defended a few of these cases where somebody fired a shot in the air, and one of them actually went to trial, and the defense attorney in this case, Dominic Gentile, who I was working for, was able to get an adjudicated verdict, a plea bargain, that left the guy that fired the shot in the air with probation only and a little bit of house arrest. And he did not, 2 gross misdemeanors. And he can actually still, later on in life, after 3 years, I believe, was a stipulation, he can apply to wherever he's living or through the feds to buy another gun again. He was prescribed not to have any firearms for 3 years, which was fine with him. He went through a lot, and I don't think he wanted to see another gun for quite a while. But I'm recalling a case here where a case we didn't meet on, that another celebrity, Jerry Lewis, had his home broken into, and he passed away a few years ago. I say a case we didn't meet on. He was defending himself in his home with guns that I had actually sold him. And the investigating detective was Sergeant Bunker here on my left. But that same type of thing happened. And we had this gigantic case over what really turned out to be a nothing burglary.
It was a nothing burglary, but ultimately it was showed that it was a fairly caustic stalker that, for whatever reason, was stalking Jerry because of a employee that he had. And did we pursue the case aggressively? Yes. The news media forces or puts the police on notice that, hey, we want some action on this. What do you think the news media does? What do you think we do when we put up an Amber Alert?
Yeah.
Is that beneficial to the general public, to the individuals involved? Yes. Catching these 2 guys that went into Wayne Newton's home, was that beneficial to the general public? Certainly. What, these guys, you think these are the only 2 burglaries these people have done? If it is, you need to buy some swampland.
Well, that's not the issue. What I'm trying to get at, the defense attorney in this current case is correct in that because of media pressure, these cases become more high profile.
Yes, they do.
And they should be, because you've got the media jumps on because of the victim. I don't think Will Ewing's defense is is very plausible, although that was the other interesting part of that first case we were just talking about, was that obviously he was caught on camera and exposed his face to the camera. So they were able to scoop him up and get warrants and find all this other stuff, and they've got him dead to rights. But he's never identified his partner, which I find really unusual. Usually the first thing that happens is party A rats off party B to get a lighter sentence.
Certainly. I mean, the seriousness of the cases that are involved, a burglar that shows the intent to move from simple burglary, which is a theft of property, to where they are attacking a dog and threatening people, raises it to a whole new level.
Oh, yeah.
as far as danger to the general public. So to say this guy is a scapegoat, you don't break into a house, you do not wake up in the morning, scratch your head, and say, you know what, I think tonight I'll go out and be a burglar. That just doesn't happen. And the likelihood of getting caught on your first burglary attempt is pretty non-existent unless you're a card-carrying idiot, which there are a few.
Yeah, I read somewhere the stats, I'm not sure it was nationally or just locally, that every time they actually arrest a burglar, they clear 25 burglaries or something.
That's approximately true.
That they do it over and over and over again until they get caught. That's the nice thing about bad guys. They keep doing it until you catch them. The bad thing is they keep doing it. we'll see what happens, and this will be covered by the media. The trial, as I say, is ongoing at the moment as we're running the show. So we will have further information. More doubt I will talk about it again next week. We've got Attorney Don Green coming on next week, and I would love to run some of these issues as he's primarily worked criminal defense. I'm sure he'll have something to add to this, whether we are treating crimes against celebrities different. But of course, you can't help it with the media pressure.
Media pressure moves a lot. And as far as the guy firing around, he had to be in a highly agitated state and wondering what these guys were going to do with what they had already done.
I realize that. I wasn't saying that was the wrong thing to do. I understand why he did it. I say I've defended people who have done that, and generally they get off because of the stress and so forth and so on. We talk about the timing and, so forth and so on. But they're charged.
Yeah. I don't think he'll be charged, and I've seen many cases that were similar to this, not a celebrity, where the individuals were not charged. It just didn't make sense with the overall view of justice.
Exactly. I understand exactly what you're saying, and it pressurizes the system. We're going to talk a little bit. We've had some friends and sponsors who have been with us for a while, and we're trying to put together a thing to show on the commercial breaks. We've got a few of them listed, and you're getting a slide up on your screen. CCS Gunsmithing is run by Chris Eifelt, as most of you know. He appears on the show. Gunsmith here in Las Vegas, great guy. You got a broken gun, go there. Jerry Creed has also been on the show a number of times. He is a specialist in gun trusts, particularly Class 3 trusts, which are really involved these days. So if you've got Class 3 weapons, right now with the law changes coming, particularly in D.C. at the moment, you need to get a hold of Jerry and update your Class 3 trust. Don Green, I just mentioned, 35 years in litigating gun cases, appears on the show, and like I said, he'll be here next week, and we'll talk about this one a little bit again that we just did. And Maggie Mordaunt, CCW Maggie, look her up on the web, CCW Maggie. She is an amazing lady instructor, her and her husband. Do lots of gun training here. They run Well-Armed Women and a whole bunch of programs for lady shooters and self-defense classes, and she's a training counselor and all this kind of stuff. Great place if you need training in firearms. Look up CCW Maggie online. And last but not least, where I eat every meal of the day if I got a chance, Ricardo's Mexican restaurant. It's here on Flamingo and Decatur on the corner. You'll find me in there every time I can get away from the house. Most of my weight around my waist is enchiladas from Ricardo's. Give them a try. Great restaurant. That worked out. This second case, again, is from the Review Journal. This is a little bit different case. The Las Vegas Review Journal, again, fine newspaper, subscribe. A reporter named Rio Lankenlale, reported on the 19th, yesterday, a lawsuit in New Jersey accuses a North Las Vegas firearms retailer of illegally selling and shipping high-capacity magazines online to undercover state investigators. The possession of high-capacity magazines holding more than 10 rounds, of what we call standard capacity magazines here, are prohibited in the state of New Jersey. That ban was signed into law in June of 2018 with very limited exceptions. Anyone found guilty of that crime faces 18 months in prison or fines of up to $10,000 per violation. Now, according to this lawsuit, their attorney general, a fellow named Goober Greenwald, I'm not pronouncing that right, announced Wednesday the online retailer New Frontier Armory failed to inform New Jersey-based buyers of the consequences of purchasing their product and continued selling the high-capacity magazines despite a cease and desist letter sent to them in January. or January 7th by the Attorney General's office. 27 of the 30 magazines that the retailer offered for sale in New Jersey apparently could hold 15 to 100 rounds of ammunition. This is quoting them now. Large capacity magazines are dangerous and have been disproportionately used in mass shootings, which is why they're illegal in New Jersey, they said in their statement on this lawsuit. The lawsuit should be a warning to industry. If you sell deadly and unlawful firearms or magazines into New Jersey, we're going to take action against you. The state's complaint against the retailer includes 2 counts of violating New Jersey's Consumer Fraud Act and 1 count of violating state regulations governing illegal products. This retailer operates a store, New Frontier Army, at 150 East Centennial Parkway in North Las Vegas. Allegedly sold 6 magazines, including a 100-round drum, to undercover investigators in New Jersey. The lawsuit seeks a court order which would require the company to post a clear statement on its website that high-capacity magazines are illegal in New Jersey, alleging the store, New Frontier Armory, had falsely stated on its website it would cancel any order that involved shipping to states where they are unlawful. Frontier Armory is a well-established gun shop, has a great reputation. I can't imagine that this was an intentional violation. I can see this as somebody in their shipping department or whatever goofed it up and sent these magazines out. I can't just imagine that there's not a whole lot more to this story. When I owned the gun store in East Tropicana, I had a similar threat from the California Attorney General's office. After they called me, and I didn't get a letter, I got a phone call. They'd seized a large number of illegal magazines from California residents that had bought them at my shop. First, I tried checking IDs from purchasers, which got me a lot of flack from the local pro-gun websites, because if you went to buy a magazine, I'd say, do you live in California, or we need to see your ID. We finally came up with a waiver to have them sign, that any magazine purchaser is asked to sign this waiver that says he or she will not transport this item to prohibited states, and then it has a list of the generally prohibited cities and counties and states. That worked. It provided, we have no control when we sell a magazine. We're selling it legally in Nevada, which these guys were. In our case, the customer was transporting it. As I say, I can't imagine that New Frontier did anything intentional here to cause this problem. I'll be quite surprised if... Anyway, they're in a lawsuit now and face, as near as I can tell so far from the lawsuit, which I'm not privy to all the wording of it, they only want them to post on their website that you can't sell these magazines to New Jersey, and if that's all there is to it, fine, and they can go on. They're, I say, a great business, and been friendly or less than friendly competitors of mine for years and years. Great respect for them, and it's almost impossible these days to run a gun shop and not violate some law somewhere, because they're all changing every 5 minutes. Anyway, that's my speech on that, and hopefully the defense attorney that's working for them can work this out and nobody will be in a whole lot of trouble. I'll ask you to comment on this, Mike, because you're...
Well, I think the idea of making illegal high-capacity magazines, I would say that with the speed limits that we currently have within almost any state in the United States, we should not sell any car that has an excessive amount of power. They obviously don't need to go 220 miles an hour, and it's a safety issue. I think the high-capacity gun magazine is bullshit, but I can say that on. I can say that on YouTube. I can't say it when.
You'll get bleeped when this is on the radio.
Oh, okay.
But that's funny, because I had a politician who will go unnamed at the moment in Nevada, who interviewed me once on this issue and said that, I took the position, which I always do, it's not the magazine capacity, it's the guy pulling the trigger. and so forth and so on, that most magazines, assault weapons or whatever, are never used for criminal purposes. And statistically, they're used hundreds of times in self-defense or recreational shooting, thousands of times if you add that. And he said, yes, but if we can even save one life. And my response was, if we lowered the speed limit to 15 miles an hour, we would save hundreds of thousands of lives across the United States, starting immediately. And his response was, but that would interfere with commerce.
Yeah, that's a two-faced answer,
same
you know.
thought.
And they're comparing, you're comparing similar things in concept, not in reality, perhaps. The difference in the speed limit in magazines is obvious, but the concept is the same if you're selling these powerful, fast cars for the street. That you show me someplace in the United States where you can drive a car down the road 200 miles an hour. I don't think we have any.
We have a racetrack here that does that for NASCAR.
Yeah, you're right
that's-
there, yeah.
Anyway, and the other thing we, of course, have is the pesky Second Amendment. There's nothing in our Constitution about you have a right to drive a car. You could probably work out something when it was written, you have a right to drive a horse and buggy. But it's a constitutional right, and it keeps getting in the way of these guys who want to disarm private citizens. And anyway, hopefully this will work out for New Frontier. Like I say, they've been an amazing store, and hope they get it. We have, we got a shop online thing at the bottom. I forgot to do this. We have on our website, we're firedupwithboberwin.com. We also have a website, firedupwithboberwinstore.com, which will put you into our list of t-shirts and a lot of my books and things like that that we have for sale online. And it helps. The capitalism wins every time. So if you will participate in the sponsors we just showed you, then we're going to expand that list. We're putting that together as we speak. And we'll have some stuff for you online if you get there and would like to participate. That would certainly help. We attend all the major gun shows here in Las Vegas, and usually Don Green and I are there. Next one's not coming up for several weeks. But we will leave it at that. And Mike, thank you for coming and sharing your thoughts and experience.
And getting bleeped on the radio.
Well, yeah, but, you know.
If that's
Yeah.
the worst that happens, we're set.
Anyway, thank you for watching Fired Up. I appreciate your tuning in. We'll be back next Thursday on our website and on YouTube, on the American Guns and Glory Network. It's all over the media. We don't we just send it to anybody who wants it. So it may, God knows what is on in your area, but check out our logo merchandise. Thanks for watching us, and you all have a good weekend. Thank you.